All right, here's my audience. All right. Imagine trying to learn a completely new language that you couldn't hear or even have words to relate to what you're trying to learn. This is exactly what it is like for many deaf people who are forced to learn through oralism. In the beginning of education, the main way of teaching deaf children was through oralism. In my speech today, I will be talking about why this method should be stopped, foundations working to bring awareness to oralism, and the effects it has on children. I hope that after I'm finished speaking to you today, that you will have a more general knowledge of what oralism is and be able to form an educated opinion on the matter. First of all, you may be wondering, what exactly is oralism? Well, as stated in an article titled Oralism in the Deaf Community, posted by Weebly, oralism is the idea that deaf individuals should be educated through the means of lip reading, mimicking mouth shapes, and practicing certain breathing patterns, as well as vocal exercises that were meant to help deaf individuals produce oral language. This form of teaching was started in the 1860s by Alexander Graham Bell and is still used to this day. However, I believe that this method is not an appropriate way of teaching deaf students because of the extreme difficulty that the students go through and the little to no benefits it has. According to an article titled How to Get Involved with the Deaf, posted by IBM, states that there are more than 200 sign languages, but sadly only 1 to 2% of deaf receive education in sign language. This is important because it shows that there are many types of sign languages out there, but people aren't taking advantage of them. It also shows that the school system is lacking in providing adequate education to everyone. Now that I have talked about stopping oralism, I will now talk about foundations working to bring awareness of it. According to an article titled Alexander Graham Bell and His Role in Oral Education, posted by the Disability History Museum, Brian Greenwald states that Alexander's promise of a more homogeneous society allowed oralism to emerge as the most attractive option to educate deaf students. Such strategies paralleled the general assimilation movement through the supposed uplifting of the deaf community by halting sign language use, reducing the importance of residential schools, and decreasing intermarriage among deaf partners. To some, these may seem like beneficial effects of this method. However, I believe that these should be considered setbacks because this means that so many deaf individuals are losing their community and aren't able to make a meaningful connection with people who are just like them. As stated in the Alexander Graham Bell Association mission statement, they advocate for public policy leaders to effectively address the needs of people with hearing loss and communities to empower and help their neighbors with hearing loss succeed. Through democracy, they are working with the government and pushing to keep oralism in schools. They believe that oralism is the most effective way for deaf people to be able to succeed. However, I believe that this isn't true because there are so many successful people who have grown up using strictly sign language. An example of a successful person would be Nal DeMarco, who is an actor, public speaker, activist, and many more titles. Now that I have talked about foundations working to bring awareness to oralism, I will now talk about the effects it has on children. Oralism isn't just a disliked method by the deaf community, but also has detrimental effects on children. At a young age, children's brains are developing at an extremely fast rate, and according to an informational YouTube video titled, What is Language Deprivation?, posted by the Nal DeMarco Foundation, states, the brain forms 700 new neural connections every second from age 0 to 5. This means that without the opportunity to learn sign language, they are missing out on building all of those connections, and it can be detrimental to their future. This causes an extremely harmful medical condition called language deprivation, meaning that they are growing up without a language to be able to communicate with others and not building those essential neural pathways. Nal DeMarco's personal experiences show that through sign language in schools, deaf children's worlds can be better. In Nal DeMarco's TED Talk, he tells a story about how he grew up in a deaf family, he went to a deaf school, and how it made him feel connected to everyone, and it made it into a utopia for him. However, he went to a hearing school for 1 year, and while he was there, only some of his friends knew sign language, but not enough to have a meaningful connection with him. In addition to this, he also found it extremely hard to be interactive with school events and sports because many thought that a deaf person would never be able to do these things successfully. This shows that oralism doesn't just affect children's mental development, but as well as their social and mental well-being. Now that I've talked about the effects of oralism on children, you should be able to see why oralism should be stopped. Today, I talked about why we should put a stop to oralism in schools, foundations helping to keep oralism, and the detrimental effects of it on children. I hope that you have learned about oralism and the effects of it on children to back my opinion about stopping this method. So the next time that you are wondering, why is this deaf person signing and not talking? Just remember how hard of a task that is for them to do and how much better off they are with knowing sign language.